We continue our reading of Dookie, Sookie, and Big Mo. This is the second chapter. The title is The Challenger. The next morning, the sun rose over the palm trees beyond the river. Mo milked the cows, ate his breakfast, and prepared to go to the village to sell the milk. He could hear Cola singing as he came up the path. The song, in a weird minor key, echoed from the jungle. It was the chant of the charm doctor, the song that was supposed to keep away the evil spirits. As Cola passed the shrine under the spirit tree, he wanted to make sure that only good spirits followed him. Brief were the greetings between Cola and Mo as the man opened the gate to let the cows out. Waving his goad stick with a flourish, the boy drove the cows down the path. "He must be angry with me," said Big Mo to himself, "because of what happened yesterday. Perhaps he will forget about it and talk to me again. I'll wait and see." As Mo worked in the hut, he heard singing outside the door. Thinking Cola had returned, Mo said, "Come in, Cola." When the man turned his head, he saw in the doorway the wizened form of the charm doctor. "Good news I bring you," began the charm doctor in his crackled, high-pitched voice as he stepped lightly into the hut. "Good news for both of us." "What is the good news?" inquired Mo. "It is Big Tao," said the little man, shaking the strings of bones and shells that hung around his neck. "Big Tao is in the village this morning, and he wants to challenge you to a fight. There's money in it for you, if you accept." He patted the money bag that he carried inside the folds of his garments. Then he added, "We know who will win." Big Mo had heard of the fame of Big Tao from the neighboring village, and he had often wished he could meet him in a fight. But today, with his hands still sore from the flames, he would not have a chance. "How can I fight with these?" he asked, extending his hands. "I can fix it," said the charm doctor in his high-pitched voice. "But I fight square and fair and honest. I don't want any tricks when I meet a challenger. I am big and strong, and I can hold my own with anyone. But just now, it would be unfair. Big Tao, tell Big Tao to wait a few days. Then I will accept." The charm doctor looked again at Mo's hands. Then he pointed up to the big gourd hanging by a fiber cord from a peg in the corner of the room. "So, that will do it," he beamed. His eyes gleamed in anticipation of a good drink from it himself. Mo knew that the rice whiskey would soon deaden the charm doctor's sensibilities. Without further argument, Mo took down the gourd, poured a drink for his guest, and then, taking his milk jars and the liquor gourd, followed the charm doctor out the door. Big Mo took big strides as he went down the path to the village road. The charm doctor had to run to keep up with him. When they came to the village, they noticed a crowd that had gathered on the wide street in front of the market. People were watching Big Tao exhibit his strength by lifting heavy weights. Children were thrilled as he permitted them to feel the huge muscles in his arms. Suddenly the crowd parted, and people shouted, "Here comes Big Mo. I bet he is stronger than Big Tao." Everyone stood back as the two giants met on the village street. When Big Mo had put down the milk jars and the big gourd, he walked fearlessly up to the challenger. Without hesitation, they began their exhibition of strength, as soon as one wrestled and tried to throw the other. Soon, the wrestling challenge changed to hitting, and the excited crowd shouted, "Come on, Big Mo, hit him again. You can get him down." The charm doctor stood back in the crowd. Now he was not so positive of the outcome of the fight. Big Mo was holding his own in spite of his burned hands. "Sow in the big gourd," shouted the little man. The fighters paused for a few moments, took long drinks of liquor from the gourd, and then, fiery gleams in their eyes, they went at it again. Part of the crowd was cheering Thou, while others were shouting words of encouragement to Big Mo. Children jumped up and down, calling, "Come on, Big Mo, you can do it." Big Mo lifted Thou up in his strong arms, held him up above his head, and then threw him down on the dusty ground with a thud. Big Mo towered over him, breathing rapidly. His eyes gleamed. His bruised and bleeding lips showed a big smile of triumph. He had won again. In spite of the sore and burning hands, he lightly touched the prone body of Thou with his bare foot. Someday, I will get you for this," said the defeated man. "It may take a long time, but I will get you today." Do you want to see the picture? There's a picture in here, a drawing of that event. Here it is. Mo wiped his sweaty face and chest with a piece of cloth and looked for the charm doctor. Since he was not in sight, Mo decided to visit him later and collect the money. Men went back to work while the women took their children and went to the market to finish shopping. The man on the ground arose slowly, rubbing his injured arm and leg, and limped down the road toward the market. As Big Mo watched his opponent go, he picked up his gourd and milk jugs. After selling the milk, he went up and down the hill path, toward home. Arriving at his hut, Big Mo wiped the perspiration from his face and put oil on his bleeding lips and sore arms and hands. He decided not to go out to the rice fields in the hot sun. The work could wait another day. The man spread a blanket on the floor and stretched out. It would be a long time before Cola would bring the cows home. Big Mo was tired. It had been a hard fight, but he had won in spite of his sore, blistered hands. He was still the village champion. Someday, perhaps, he would be the best fighter in India. Perhaps not in all India, but in the land of the Savaras anyway. He clenched his fists and tightened his muscles. How big and strong he felt. How good it made him feel to hear the people cheer. He recalled the day at the Raja's garden party when he had been asked to show his strength to some of the Raja's rich friends and honored guests. How proud he felt when he held back the car from moving with the motor going at full power. The Raja paid him well for that performance. Big Mo wiped the blood from his lips again as he closed his eyes. In a few minutes he was asleep with a satisfied smile on his face. The sun was nearing the western horizon when Big Mo suddenly awoke. He sat up quickly, for he heard singing. It was Cola coming up the stony path, bringing the 4 cows home. Mo arose and went to open the gate. "I heard about the fight," said Cola. "People in the village say you are the strongest man for miles around. You can whip anybody." Big Mo felt pride coursing through him. He liked to have people say how strong he was. He was glad that Cola was in a mood to talk. Perhaps they could be friends, after all. Mo shut the gate after Cola drove the cows into the enclosure. Did you have a good day in the grasslands? Cola nodded. It must have been hot in the valley, said Mo. Cola nodded again. Will you stay and eat supper with me, Cola? No, said Cola. You're a strong man, but you dare to go against the spirits, and I would be afraid to eat with you. Besides, you have been drinking too much from the big gourd. With a wave of his goad, Cola went on his way, singing the chant of the charm doctor. Big Mo turned to the task of preparing rice in the black kettle that hung in the little fireplace. When it was cooking, he took the milk bucket and went to milk the cows. Big Mo strained the milk through a white cloth into an earthen jar. Then he placed the jar in the water tank to cool. He did not need to add water to the milk he sold, as many people did, for Mo was a 4-cow man and considered quite rich. Most of his neighbors only owned 1 cow. Before he retired for the night, Big Mo, as usual, built a fire near the door for protection against wild jungle animals. Tigers, leopards, wild jungle dogs, hyenas, and monkeys often came down from the hills to snatch whatever they could find. Big Mo knew that wild animals are afraid of fire, so he felt safer as the flames threw their light on his mat on the floor. Big Mo sat down on his stone doorstep to watch the moon come up over the palm trees. As he sat thinking, he gently rubbed oil on his hands and his bruised lips. He was not sleepy, for he had spent the afternoon in drunken drowsiness. Perhaps Cola was right in saying that he drank too much. That's chapter number 2. And the title, The Challenger. Be sure and tune in for our next exciting story of Dookie, Sookie, and Big Mo.